Kim Tae-ho stared at the message on his screen for the third time. The words looked the same, but he kept hoping they would change. The Interstellar Aid Commission wanted him to travel to a planet called Kepler 442b. His job would be teaching survival skills to aliens. Real aliens. He rubbed his tired eyes and reached for his coffee cup. The apartment was quiet except for the soft hum of the medical equipment in the next room. Through the thin walls, he could hear his sister Mira coughing again. The sound made his chest tight with worry. Tae-ho had been a military survival instructor for 8 years before he quit. Too many missions, too many close calls, and too much paperwork had worn him down. Now he taught rich people how to build fires and find water in controlled wilderness parks. It paid the bills, but barely enough to cover Mira's medical treatments. Kwaidow. Message said the aliens needed help after their ship crashed on Kepler 442b. The planet was harsh and dangerous. The aliens were peaceful but had no idea how to survive without their technology. They needed someone to teach them basic skills like making fire, finding food, and building shelter. The pay was incredible. More money than Tae-ho had ever seen for a single job. 3 months of work would cover all of Mira's treatments and maybe give them enough left over for her to rest without worrying about money. But it meant leaving Earth. It meant traveling farther from home than any human had, gone to help aliens. Tae-ho did not trust aliens. He did not trust anyone, really, but aliens seemed especially dangerous. His door chimed softly. Mira walked in slowly, wrapped in a thick blanket despite the warm apartment. Her face was pale and thin, but she smiled when she saw him. "You look worried, brother," she said, settling into the chair across from his desk. "What is troubling you?" Tae-ho turned his screen so she could see the message. Mira read quietly, her eyebrows rising higher with each paragraph. "This is amazing," she said when she finished. "They want you specifically. Look, they studied your military records and your civilian teaching scores. You are the best survival instructor they could find. It means leaving you alone for 3 months, Tae-ho said. What if you get worse while I am gone?" Mira reached across the desk and took his hand. Her fingers were cold and thin. "Brother, I am not getting better, we both know this. But this money could buy me real treatment at the advanced medical center, not just the basic care I get now." Tae-ho pulled his hand away and stood up. He walked to the window and looked out at the crowded city streets. Ships flew between the tall buildings, carrying people to jobs and homes and normal lives. None of them had to choose between taking care of their family and traveling across the galaxy to help creatures they had never seen. "I do not like aliens," he said quietly. "You have never met any aliens," Mira replied. "How do you know you do not like them?" "I do not trust them. Humans are bad enough. At least I understand why humans do terrible things. Aliens are completely unknown." Mira was quiet for a long moment. Then she spoke in the gentle voice she used when she wanted to change his mind about something. "Remember when we were children and the older kids would not let us play with them? They said we were too young and would mess up their games. But then that new boy, Jin-ho, he was willing to teach us the rules. He showed us how to play properly." Tae-ho remembered. Jin-ho had been patient and kind, spending hours helping them learn complicated games. Later, Jin-ho became one of their best friends. "Maybe these aliens are like us when we were children," Mira continued. "They do not know the rules for surviving on this planet. They need someone like Jin-ho to teach them. Someone like you." Tae-ho sighed and returned to his chair. The message was still there, still offering more money than he had ever dreamed of earning. 3 months, he said. 3 months to save enough money for my treatment and to help an entire alien species learn to survive, Mira corrected. 2 days later, Tae-ho stood in the departure bay of the orbital station, carrying a single bag of personal items and 2 cases of survival equipment. The ship that would carry him to Kepler 442b was larger than any vehicle he had ever seen. It gleamed silver and white under the station lights. Captain Lee Dongwoo met him at the boarding ramp. Dongwoo was an old friend from Tae-ho's military days. He had short gray hair and laugh lines around his eyes, but his expression was serious. "I wish you had asked me about this job before accepting," Dongwu said as they walked up the ramp. "Why? What is wrong with it?" "Nothing is wrong exactly, but there are things about this situation that the commission did not put in their official message." They entered the ship's passenger area. It was comfortable, but clearly designed for long journeys. Taeho chose a seat near the window and stored his bags. "What kind of things?" Taeho asked. Dongwu sat across from him and lowered his voice. "The aliens, these Villani, they are not just random travelers who got unlucky. Their entire civilization is running from something. Their home planets were attacked. Attacked by who? Nobody knows for sure. The Villani will not talk about it, but every ship that escapes their home system is packed with refugees, not explorers or traders." The ship's engines began to hum. Through the window, Taeho could see the Earth getting smaller as they moved away from the station. "There is something else," Dongwu said. "These Villani are not as helpless as they claim. Their technology is far beyond ours. They have medical equipment that can cure diseases we consider fatal. They have energy sources we do not understand. Then why do they need me to teach them survival skills? That is the question, is it not? Why would a species with advanced technology need a human to teach them how to make fire?" Taeho stared out the window at the stars. They looked cold and distant, nothing like the warm lights of his city back home. Somewhere out there was a crashed alien ship full of creatures who claimed they needed his help. But maybe they needed something else entirely. Maybe they had their own reasons for bringing him to their planet, reasons that had nothing to do with building shelters or finding food. The thought should have worried him more than it did. Instead, Taeho found himself curious. For the first time in years, he was heading towards something completely unknown. Mira had been right about one thing. He had never actually met any aliens. Maybe it was time to find out what they were really. It's like the ship carried him deeper into space toward Kepler 442b and the Villani, who were waiting for him there. Whatever they truly wanted, he would find out soon enough. Until then, he could only prepare for the job he had agreed to do and hope that 3 months would be enough time to help them and return home to his sister. Outside the ship, the stars watched silently as another human traveled farther from home than any of his kind had gone before, carrying with him the knowledge that might save an alien species or change the course of 2 civilizations forever. 3 weeks had passed since Taeho first set foot on Kepler 442b. The planet was more beautiful and dangerous than he had expected. 2 purple suns hung in the sky, casting strange shadows across valleys filled with crystal trees. The air smelled like flowers and metal, and the ground sparkled with minerals that had no names. The Villani settlement sat in a protected valley near a clean river. Their crashed ship had been turned into temporary shelters, but the metal walls were thin and the power systems failed regularly. When Taeho arrived, he found 847 aliens living in conditions that would kill them within months. The Villani themselves were nothing like he had imagined. They stood nearly 8 feet tall with long, graceful limbs. Their skin looked like living crystal that changed color with their emotions. When they were happy, they glowed soft blue. When worried, they turned pale green. When afraid, they became almost transparent. Their leader, Kethma, had skin that shifted between gold and silver when she spoke. She moved like a dancer and spoke in a voice that sounded like wind chimes. But when Taeho asked her to start a fire without technology, she stared at him as if he had asked her to fly. "We do not understand," Kethma had said, her skin turning confused purple. "Fire comes from energy generators. How does one create fire from nothing?" That was when Taeho realized the true problem. The Villani were incredibly advanced, but their technology had made them helpless. They had machines for everything. Machines that made food, machines that cleaned water, machines that controlled temperature. Without their machines, they were like children. The young scientist Rilven followed Taeho everywhere, asking endless questions. Rilven's skin sparkled bright yellow when excited, which happened every time Taeho showed them something new. When Taeho demonstrated how to make fire by rubbing 2 sticks together, Rilven's whole body lit up like a star. "This is impossible," Rilvan whispered, watching the tiny flame grow. You create energy from friction alone. No power source, no chemical reaction chambers, just movement and patience. Not impossible, Tejo said, feeding small twigs to the fire. Just simple. But teaching the Villani was harder than teaching humans. They had no instincts for survival. When Tejo showed them edible plants, they wanted to analyze them in laboratories first. When he taught them to build shelters, they tried to calculate the exact engineering requirements. They thought too much and felt too little. The engineer, Noxel, was the worst student. His skin stayed gray with frustration as he struggled with basic tasks. These methods are inefficient, he complained while failing to start his fifth fire of the day. My machines could produce superior results in seconds. Your machines are broken, Tejo reminded him. These methods work anywhere, anytime, with materials you can find on any planet. The medic Yilra was more successful. Her skin glowed gentle green as she learned to identify plants that could treat injuries and illnesses. She had steady hands and natural patience, qualities that served her well when learning traditional healing methods. Your species is remarkable, she told Tejo one evening as they gathered medicinal roots. You adapt to any environment, solve problems with limited resources, survive conditions that would destroy us. Tejo had never thought of humans as remarkable. To him, survival skills were just common sense. But watching the Villani struggle with simple tasks made him realize how much knowledge humans took for granted. The real breakthrough came during the first major storm. Dark clouds gathered quickly in the purple sky, and wind began howling through the valley. The Villani panicked, their skin flashing white with terror. Their shelters started falling apart, and their power systems failed completely. Tejo organized them into teams. Group by group, he taught them to secure their shelters using techniques he had shown them earlier. He showed them how to dig drainage channels to direct water away from their living areas. He demonstrated how to keep fires burning even in strong wind. The Villani worked together naturally, better than any human team Tejo had ever seen. They communicated without words, their skin colors coordinating to show different emotions and intentions. When one group finished their task, they immediately helped the next group without being asked. By the time the storm ended, the settlement was not only secure, but actually improved. The Villani had used their teamwork skills combined with Tejo's survival knowledge to create something better than either could achieve alone. That night, Kethma approached Tejo with skin glowing warm orange with gratitude. We understand now, she said. Survival is not about having the right tools. It is about being able to adapt when the tools fail. But Tejo was receiving messages from Earth that worried him. His friend Dongwu sent encrypted communications, warning about political problems. Some human governments viewed the Villani as potential allies who could share their advanced technology. Others saw them as threats who might compete with human colonies for resources. Complete your mission quickly and return home, Dongwu's latest message said. The situation here is becoming complicated. There are questions about why the Villani really want human survival instructors. Tejo deleted the message and looked around the settlement. The Villani were practicing their new skills, glowing blue, with satisfaction as they successfully completed tasks that had seemed impossible weeks ago. Rilvan was teaching a group of young Villani how to weave baskets from local plants. Noxel had finally learned to start fires and was showing others his technique. These beings did not seem threatening. They were curious, peaceful, and eager to learn. They shared their food with him, answered his questions about their culture, and treated him with respect and kindness. The Villani had memory crystals that stored thousands of years of history. When they allowed Tejo to experience one, he saw a civilization that had never known war. They solved problems through discussion and cooperation. They explored space not to conquer but to learn. They developed technology to help and heal, never to harm. One evening, as the two suns set behind the mountains, Rilvan sat beside Tejo near the central fire. Why do humans fight each other? The young Villani asked, skin shifting to curious yellow. I do not know, Tejo answered honestly. We compete for resources, I suppose. We disagree about how to live. But cooperation produces better results than competition. Your own lessons prove this. Taiho had no good answer. Watching the Villani work together had shown him possibilities he had never considered. Maybe humans fought because they had never learned better ways to solve problems. As he lay in his simple shelter that night, listening to the gentle harmony the Villani created when they slept, Taiho began to wonder if his 3-month contract would be long enough to teach them everything they needed to know. More importantly, he wondered if 3 months would be long enough for him to learn everything they had to teach him. 6 weeks into his mission, Taiho woke to the sound of running feet and excited voices. The Villani were gathering near the central fire, their skin colors flashing in patterns he had learned meant urgent communication. Something was wrong. Kethma approached him with skin cycling between worried green and determined gold. The weather monitors show a massive storm system approaching, much larger than the previous storm. It will arrive in 2 days. Taiho studied the data on their remaining functional screens. The storm was enormous, with winds that could flatten their settlement and floods that could wash away everything they had built. In his old military days, he would have ordered an immediate evacuation to higher ground, but the Villani could not evacuate. Their injured and elderly could not travel far, and they had nowhere else to go on this hostile planet. They would have to survive the storm where they were. "We need to prepare everything," Taiho announced to the gathered crowd. "Use all the techniques we have practiced. This will test everything you have learned." What happened next amazed him. The Villani organized themselves without arguments or confusion. They divided into teams based on their new skills. The firemakers gathered fuel and built covered areas to keep flames alive during heavy rain. The shelter builders reinforced every structure and created drainage systems. The food gatherers collected supplies that would last through several days of bad weather. Rilven led a team of young Villani in creating emergency supply caches around the settlement. Their skin glowed bright blue with excitement as they applied human survival principles to their own natural organizational abilities. "We hide supplies in multiple locations," Rilven explained to Taiho. "If the main settlement is damaged, we will have resources scattered in safe places. This is human-style redundancy planning, combined with our distribution systems." Knox L., who had struggled so much with basic skills, proved to be excellent at organizing large groups. His engineering background helped him coordinate the construction of wind barriers and flood channels. His skin showed steady silver concentration as he directed dozens of workers with calm efficiency. Yilra prepared medical stations in protected areas and trained other Villani in basic emergency care using both traditional plant medicines and their remaining medical technology. Her gentle green glow helped keep everyone calm as they worked. The storm arrived exactly when predicted. Taiho had experienced many dangerous weather events, but nothing like this. The wind screamed across the valley with enough force to pick up large rocks. Rain fell so hard it was difficult to breathe. Lightning turned the sky purple and white, and thunder shook the ground. But the Villani settlement held. Every technique Taiho had taught them was put to use. Their shelters bent with the wind instead of breaking. Their drainage channels directed floodwater safely away from living areas. Their covered fires continued burning, providing heat and light throughout the crisis. Most importantly, the Villani worked together with perfect coordination. They communicated through skin color changes that were visible even in the storm's darkness. When one shelter began failing, nearby teams immediately came to help repair it. When someone was injured, medics appeared instantly to provide care. Taiho found himself in the middle of a survival situation unlike any he had experienced. The Villani were not just using his techniques, they were improving them. Their natural cooperation abilities made every survival strategy more effective. When the storm finally ended after 3 days, the settlement was not just intact, but actually stronger than before. The Villani had used the crisis to implement better organization systems and more efficient resource distribution. That evening, as the two suns reappeared behind clearing clouds, Kethma made an announcement to the entire community. "Taiho of the humans has taught us to survive without machines," she said, her skin glowing warm gold. "But we have also taught him about cooperation without competition. Perhaps it is time to consider a new arrangement." She turned to face Taiho directly. "We would like you to stay with us permanently. Not as a temporary instructor, but as a permanent member of our community. You could be our liaison between your species and ours. The offer surprised Taeho more than the storm had. He had been thinking of this assignment as a temporary job, something to endure until he could return home to Mira. But the past 6 weeks had changed him. He found himself looking forward to each day's lessons and discoveries. The Villani had become more than students. They had become friends. Rilven stepped forward, skin bright with hopeful yellow. You could teach other human survival methods to our people on different worlds. We could show you our technologies and our ways of solving problems without conflict. Together we could create something new. But Taeho thought about Mira back on Earth. She needed him, even if her medical treatments were going well with the money he was earning. How could he abandon his sister to stay with aliens on a distant planet? That night he sent a message to his friend Cho Hyunwoo, a scientist who studied alien biology. Hyunwoo had always been curious about other species and might have insights about the Villani. The response came back quickly and contained disturbing news. Taeho, I have been monitoring reports from the border colonies. Multiple Villani refugee ships have been arriving at human settlements. They are fleeing something in their home star systems, but they will not explain what. The numbers are much larger than anyone expected. This is not just one crashed ship. This is a massive evacuation. Hyunwoo's message continued with more troubling information. Some of these refugee groups have asked specifically for human survival instructors. They are requesting teachers, but they are offering advanced technology in exchange. Medical equipment, energy systems, even faster than light communication devices. Why would a species with such advanced technology need humans to teach them basic survival skills? There is something about this situation that does not make sense. Taeho stared at the message for a long time. The Villani around him continued, their evening activities, glowing with contentment as they practiced their new skills. They seemed honest and peaceful, but Hyunwoo's questions were valid. He approached Rilven, who was working on a new type of shelter design that combined human techniques with Villani materials. Rilven, can I ask you something honestly? Why do your people really need survival instructors? Your technology is far beyond ours. You could certainly figure out how to make fires and build shelters without human help. The young Villani's skin shifted to uncomfortable purple, then slowly changed to honest blue. You are right to ask. We have not told you everything about our situation. Rilven set down the shelter materials and looked directly at Taeho. We are not just survivors of an accident. We are refugees from a war. Our people have been peaceful for thousands of years, but something new has come to our star systems. Something that destroys everything we built. We study human survival skills because we believe they hold the key to resistance. Humans adapt and fight back in ways that we never learned. We hope that by understanding how humans survive impossible situations, we can learn to survive this new threat. The admission changed everything. The Villani were not just asking for help with basic survival. They wanted to learn human methods of resistance and adaptation because their peaceful ways had failed against some unknown enemy. Taeho realized that his choice was more complicated than deciding between staying with friends or returning to family. He might be choosing between helping an alien species learn to defend itself or leaving them vulnerable to whatever had driven them from their homes. As he lay awake that night, listening to the gentle harmony of Villani sleep songs, Taeho knew that his simple 3-month teaching contract had become something much more important and dangerous. 10 weeks into his mission, Taeho discovered that everything he thought he knew about the Villani was wrong. It started when Noxel collapsed during a routine shelter building lesson. The engineer had been working harder than anyone, pushing himself to master every survival skill despite his early struggles. His skin turned a frightening gray-white color, and he began making sounds like breaking glass. Yilra rushed to help, but her basic medical supplies were useless. He needs advanced treatment, she said, her skin flashing desperate red. The emergency medical bay in the crashed ship might still function, but... She stopped speaking and looked at Kethma with an expression Taeho had never seen before. The leader's skin cycled through several colors rapidly, before settling on resigned gold. Show him, Kethma said quietly. We cannot let Noxel die to protect our secrets. Yilra led them to a section of the crashed ship that had been sealed off since Taiho's arrival. When the doors opened, he found himself looking at medical technology that made Earth's most advanced hospitals look primitive. Holographic displays showed detailed body scans, machines hummed with power that should not have existed in a crashed vessel, and treatment pods that seemed to bend light around them. "This is impossible," Taiho whispered. "You told me most of your technology was destroyed in the crash." Yilra worked quickly at controls that responded to her touch and thoughts simultaneously. Noxel was placed in a treatment pod that immediately began healing his condition with methods Taiho could not understand. "We did not lie about the crash," Kethma said, her skin showing sad but honest blue. "But we did not tell you the complete truth about our situation." As Noxel's condition stabilized, Kethma led Taiho to another hidden section of the ship. Here he found workshops where Villani worked on devices that seemed to violate basic physics, laboratories analyzing the planet's resources with impossible precision, and communication equipment that somehow sent messages across interstellar distances, instantly. "We have been observing and studying human behavior since you arrived," Kethma explained. "Every survival technique you taught us was recorded and analyzed. Every adaptation method was studied and cataloged. Every demonstration of human resilience was examined for applications to our own survival needs." Taiho felt betrayed and foolish. "So you never needed me to teach you basic survival. You were studying me." "We did need you," Rilvan said, approaching, from one of the laboratories with skin showing sincere yellow. "But not in the way we let you believe." Rilvan gestured to displays showing complex analyses of human behavior patterns, adaptation strategies, and survival psychology. "Our species evolved on worlds with stable climates and abundant resources. We developed advanced technology because we never needed to develop survival instincts. When threats appeared, we simply moved to safer places. But now we face an enemy that cannot be avoided by moving," Kethma continued. "The Kethvar consume entire star systems. They eat crystalline life forms like us. They follow our ships across the galaxy, destroying every place we try to hide." She showed him recordings that made his blood run cold. Massive ships that looked like living metal descended on beautiful crystal cities. Where they passed, nothing remained but empty space and cosmic dust. "The Kethvar have destroyed 17 of our worlds," Kethma said, her skin shifting to the pale green of grief. "Millions of our people have died because we do not know how to fight. We only know how to run, and running is no longer enough. We study human survival methods because humans do something we have never learned," Rilvan added. "When faced with impossible situations, humans find ways to adapt and fight back. We need to understand how to do this." Taiho sat down heavily, on a crystal bench trying to process what he had learned. "How many Villani are left?" "Perhaps 2 million scattered across dozens of refugee fleets," Kethma answered. "Each fleet is looking for ways to survive the Kethvar threat. Some seek new homes in distant galaxies. Others try to develop weapons. We chose to study the species that has survived more extinction-level threats than any other known life form." "Humans," Taiho said. "Humans," she confirmed. "You survived ice ages, asteroid impacts, supervolcano eruptions, plagues, and wars that destroyed entire civilizations. Each time, you adapted and rebuilt stronger than before. This resilience is what we need to learn." The revelation made Taiho think about his own species differently. He had always seen human history as a series of disasters and conflicts. But from the Villani perspective, humanity's greatest weakness was actually its greatest strength. "What do you want from me now?" he asked. "We want you to help us become more like humans," Rilvan said. "Not in body, but in mind. We need to learn human methods of resistance, adaptation, and survival under pressure." Before Taiho could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the ship. Villani technicians rushed to monitoring stations with skin flashing urgent red. "What is happening?" Taiho asked. Kethma's skin turned the color of ice. "Kethvar scout ships. They have found us." Through the ship's sensors, Taiho saw 3 dark vessels approaching the planet. They moved with predatory grace, clearly searching for signs of Villani presence. "We must hide," Ylra said, her skin almost transparent with fear. "No," Tejo said, standing up with sudden determination. "We use what you have learned. Remember the storm preparation. Remember how you adapted human techniques with your natural abilities." He turned to address all the Villani in the command area. "You have advanced technology and natural cooperation skills. I have human survival knowledge. The Kethvar are looking for typical Villani energy signatures and technology patterns. But what if we use human camouflage methods combined with your advanced systems?" Working together, they implemented a hiding strategy that neither species could have developed alone. The Villani used their technology to mask energy signatures while applying human camouflage principles to make the settlement look like natural, geological formations. They scattered into small groups using human survival techniques while maintaining their species' natural communication networks. The Kethvar scouts searched the planet for 2 days, but found no trace of the Villani settlement. The combination of advanced alien technology and primitive human survival methods created a concealment system the enemy could not detect. When the Kethvar ships finally left, Kethma approached Tejo with skin glowing the warmest gold he had ever seen. "You have shown us something new," she said. "For the first time since the Kethvar attacks began, we successfully hid from them using methods they did not expect. This gives us hope." But Tejo was thinking about larger implications. If the Kethvar are following Villani refugees across the galaxy, they will eventually reach human space. "Yes," Kethma agreed. "Your species will face the same threat that destroyed ours, perhaps sooner than you think." That night, Tejo sent an urgent message to Earth through the Villani's advanced communication system. He told them everything: the true nature of the Kethvar threat, the number of Villani refugees, and the approaching danger to human colonies. He also sent a personal message to Mira. The medical technology he had seen in the Villani ship could cure her completely, but using it would mean revealing the aliens' true capabilities to Earth governments that might not be ready for such knowledge. His 3-month teaching contract was nearly finished, but Tejo realized his real work was just beginning. The survival skills he had taught the Villani were not just about building fires and finding water. They were about learning to resist extinction itself. And if the Kethvar were coming for humanity too, then both species would need every survival skill they could learn. 12 weeks after arriving on Kepler 442b, Tejo stood at the edge of the Villani settlement, watching a human military transport descend from the purple sky. His contract was officially complete, but everything had become more complicated than anyone had planned. Earth's response to his emergency reports had been swift and alarming. The ship carried military intelligence analyst Kang Soo-jin, a stern woman with short black hair and eyes that missed nothing. She also brought news that made Tejo's stomach tighten with worry. "Your sister is doing well," Soo-jin told him during their first private meeting. "The medical treatments funded by your contract have been successful. Mira asked me to give you this." She handed him a personal message tablet. Mira's face appeared on the screen, looking healthier than she had in years. Her cheeks had color again and her eyes were bright with energy. "Brother, I am getting stronger every day. The doctors say I will make a complete recovery. But I want you to know something important. The technology that is healing me came from your alien friends, did it not? I can see it in the equipment and methods they are using. This is not just human medicine." Mira's image smiled warmly. "I do not need you to come home to take care of me anymore. I need you to do what you think is right, even if it means staying far from Earth. Follow your heart, not your sense of duty to me." Soo-jin took the tablet back and activated a privacy shield around their meeting area. "Your reports have created significant debate on Earth. The government is divided about how to handle the Villani situation." She showed him classified documents on her personal display. One faction wants to form an immediate alliance. They see Villani technology as crucial for defending against the Kethvar threat. The other faction wants all Villani moved to distant, isolated systems where they cannot influence human development or potentially betray us to enemies. What do you think?" Taeho asked. I think the Kethvar threat is real and immediate, Sujin replied grimly. Our deep space monitors have detected unusual ship movements at the edge of human territory. Something large is coming, and it matches the energy signatures you described in your reports about Kethvar scouts. She switched to tactical displays, showing the outer colonies. We estimate 6 months before they reach our first settlements, maybe less. We need every advantage we can get, which means we need Villani technology and cooperation. But some people in government do not trust aliens offering help. They remember stories about gifts that came with hidden costs. They worry the Villani are manipulating us for their own survival. Taeho looked across the settlement where Villani and his few human colleagues worked together maintaining the equipment and practicing survival skills. Have you talked to them yourself? That is why I am here. I need to evaluate whether these aliens can be trusted with human security. Over the next few days, Sujin interviewed Villani leaders and observed their daily activities. She was present when Kethvar scouts returned to the system, and she watched as the combined human-Villani concealment methods again successfully hid the settlement. During the crisis, Taeho saw Sujin's professional skepticism gradually change to grudging respect. The Villani shared information freely, protected human personnel during dangerous moments, and never demanded anything in return for their cooperation. They are not like any military or political organization I have studied, she admitted after the scouts left. Their decision-making processes prioritize group survival over individual advantage. They seem genuinely committed to mutual cooperation. But the real test came when another refugee ship arrived carrying Villani survivors from a recently destroyed world. These newcomers were traumatized and desperate, their skin colors flickering with grief and terror. Taeho watched as the settled Villani immediately shared their limited resources with the new arrivals. They provided food, shelter, and medical care without hesitation, even though it meant reducing their own supplies. More importantly, they began teaching the newcomers the survival skills Taeho had shown them. The lessons were adapted for Villani physiology and psychology, but the core principles remained the same. Adapt to your environment, work together, never give up hope. This is remarkable, Sujin told Taeho that evening. They are spreading human survival knowledge throughout their entire species. Every refugee ship that stops here will carry these techniques to other Villani communities. But the new arrivals brought disturbing news. The Kethvar were not just destroying Villani worlds anymore. They had begun attacking other species too, consuming any crystalline or silicon-based life forms they encountered. Rilvan approached them with skin showing urgent yellow excitement mixed with worried green. The Kethvar have changed their patterns. They are no longer just following our refugee fleets. They are actively hunting all advanced civilizations in this region of the galaxy. Which means, Kethma added, joining their conversation with skin glowing determined gold, humanity will face them whether or not you choose to help us. The question is whether our species will face this threat separately or together. That night, Sujin sent an encrypted message to Earth requesting immediate policy decisions. The response came back within hours, and it was not what any of them had hoped for. Earth Command has decided on a compromise position, Sujin announced to the assembled leaders. We will provide limited assistance to Villani refugees, but we will not form a full military alliance. Human colonies will be fortified independently, while Villani refugees are relocated to neutral systems. In other words, Taeho said, you want to help them just enough to get access to their technology, but not enough to share the risks of fighting the Kethvar. Sujin's expression showed she disagreed with the decision, but was bound to follow orders. The government believes this approach minimizes human casualties while still providing some benefits. Kethma's skin cycled through disappointed purple before settling on resigned silver. We understand human caution. We have seen many species make similar choices when faced with the Kethvar threat. Most of them are extinct now. But we still offer our proposal to you personally, Taeho, Rilvan said. Stay with us as a permanent cultural liaison. Help us learn human adaptation methods while we share our technology with human settlements that want to cooperate voluntarily. You would be working outside official Earth government policy, Sujin warned. If you stay, you would be considered a freelance contractor, not a government representative. Taeho walked alone to the edge of the settlement and looked up at the alien constellations. 6 months from now, the Kethvar would reach human space. Earth's government planned to face that threat with traditional military methods and defensive fortifications. But Taeho had seen what happened when Vellani cooperation methods combined with human survival techniques. The results were better than either species could achieve alone. His friend Dongwu contacted him that night with a private message. I have been reassigned to coordinate defenses for the outer colonies. Officially, I cannot offer you any support if you stay with the aliens. Unofficially, I think you are doing exactly what humanity needs, even if Earth government cannot see it yet. There are other humans who feel the same way. Colonists and independent traders who care more about survival than politics. If you can help create real cooperation between our species, you will have support from people who matter. The next morning, Sujin prepared to return to Earth with her official reports. Before leaving, she approached Taeho privately. I have to follow orders and return home, she said. But my report will recommend that Earth government reconsider their decision. What you have accomplished here proves that human Vellani cooperation produces superior results to either species working alone. Will that change anything? Maybe not immediately, but when the Kethvar arrive and Earth's defensive strategies prove insufficient, they will remember that there was an alternative approach. She paused and looked around the thriving settlement, where 2 species had learned to work as one community. The question is, will you still be here to help when they finally ask for real cooperation? That evening, as Sujin's transport disappeared into the stars, Taeho made his choice. He would stay with the Vellani and help build the foundation for true interspecies cooperation. The Kethvar were coming for both humans and Vellani. When they arrived, they would find 2 species that had learned to combine their strengths instead of hiding behind their individual weaknesses. It would not be easy, and Earth government might not approve, but Taeho knew it was the right choice for the survival of both civilizations. 6 months after his original 3-month contract began, Taeho stood on a hill overlooking the first permanent human Vellani cooperative settlement. The valley below bustled with activity as 2 species worked together to build something neither could have created alone. The immediate Kethvar threat had forced rapid changes. When the enemy ships reached the outer human colonies, Earth's traditional defensive strategies proved insufficient. Fortified positions fell quickly to weapons that could consume metal and energy shields. Evacuation fleets were hunted down by ships that moved faster than anything humans had built. But the colonies that had accepted Vellani refugees and implemented cooperative defense strategies survived. The combination of human adaptability and Vellani technology created unpredictable solutions that confused Kethvar attack patterns. Dongwu arrived at the settlement leading a fleet of human refugees and military personnel. His hair had gone completely gray in the past months, but his eyes held more hope than Taeho had seen in years. Earth government has officially requested full alliance with the Vellani Refugee Council, Dongwu announced to the gathered community. They want to establish joint training centers and combine defense systems. They also want to offer you a formal position as Director of Interspecies Cooperation. Taeho smiled but shook his head. I have a better position already. Rilven approached them with skin glowing bright blue with excitement. The young Vellani had grown into a confident leader over the past months, coordinating between refugee groups and human settlements across 3 star systems. We have established 12 cooperative settlements, Rilven reported. Each one combines human survival techniques with Vellani technology and cooperation methods. The Kethvar have attacked 6 of them, but all survived using the concealment and adaptation strategies we developed here. More importantly, the settlements were sharing knowledge rapidly. Every successful defense technique was analyzed and distributed to other communities within days. Human military tactics were being enhanced with Vellani coordination systems. Vellani technology was being made more resilient using human redundancy principles. Yilra had become the chief medical officer for the entire cooperative network. Her integration of human traditional medicine with Vellani healing technology had created treatments that worked for both species. She had also trained human medics to use Villani equipment and taught Villani healers human emergency care methods. Your sister Mira has requested permission to join our medical research program, Yilra told Taiho, her skin showing warm green satisfaction. She wants to help develop treatments that can be produced using resources available on any planet, not just in advanced medical facilities. The news filled Taiho with pride. Mira had not only recovered her health but found a new purpose helping others do the same. She would arrive on the next transport ready to contribute her own skills to the growing alliance. Noxel had surprised everyone by becoming the most effective teacher in the program. His early struggles with survival skills had taught him patience and understanding for students who found adaptation difficult. He now led training programs that helped both species learn from each other. "We have a new proposal," Noxel announced during the evening community meeting. "Instead of just teaching humans and Villani separately, we want to create mixed teams for everything. Exploration, construction, research, defense. Every group should include members of both species working together from the beginning." The idea was revolutionary. Instead of maintaining separate human and Villani communities that cooperated when needed, they would create truly integrated teams where interspecies cooperation was the default approach to every challenge. Kethma, whose skin now held permanent threads of silver and gold showing her role as an elder leader, supported the proposal enthusiastically. "This settlement has proven that our species are stronger together than apart. Why should we limit this strength to emergency situations?" But the real test came when Kethvar forces launched their largest attack yet. A full invasion fleet targeted the cooperative settlement, clearly recognizing it as a center of effective resistance. The defense of the settlement showcased everything both species had learned. Human tactical flexibility combined with Villani strategic coordination. Advanced alien technology guided by human survival instincts. Peaceful Villani cooperation methods enhanced by human determination to fight for what they valued. The battle lasted 3 days. Kethvar ships that had destroyed entire planets found themselves confused by defenses that adapted faster than their targeting systems. Human fighters used Villani communication technology to coordinate perfectly. Villani defensive systems powered human weapons that struck from unexpected angles. When the Kethvar finally retreated, they left behind something unprecedented: abandoned equipment and damaged ships that could be studied and understood. "They are not invincible," Dongwu announced after analyzing the captured technology. "They rely on predictable enemy responses. When we do things they do not expect, their advantages disappear." Sujin, who had returned leading a full diplomatic mission, was amazed by what she found. Earth government wants to implement this cooperative model across all human territory. They are requesting Villani advisors for every major colony and military installation. But Taiho had learned to think beyond immediate military needs. "What happens after we defeat the Kethvar? Do our species go back to being separate civilizations, or have we created something new?" Rilven answered with skin showing deep, thoughtful blue. "We have created something that neither species imagined before. Humans have learned to solve problems through cooperation instead of competition. Villani have learned to adapt and resist instead of just moving away from threats." "Perhaps the most important lesson," Kethma added, "is that survival is not about becoming stronger than your enemies. It is about becoming something your enemies cannot predict or understand." Over the following months, the cooperative model spread rapidly. Human colonies that had been isolated and vulnerable became thriving communities when they accepted Villani refugees and advisors. Villani refugee fleets that had been running from the Kethvar for years established permanent settlements and began developing new defensive technologies. Taiho found himself traveling between settlements as the first official human Villani cultural integration specialist. His job was no longer teaching basic survival skills. Instead, he helped establish communication protocols, resolve conflicts between different cultural approaches, and ensure that cooperation remained genuine rather than forced. Mira arrived, and immediately threw herself into medical research that benefited both species. Her work on treatments using locally available resources helped settlements become truly self-sufficient. More importantly, her natural empathy helped human and Villani medical teams work together effectively. "I understand now why you stayed," she told Tejo during one of his visits to her research facility. "This is not just about helping aliens or even saving humanity. This is about proving that intelligent species can choose cooperation over conflict. You have shown that the universe does not have to be a place where different peoples fight for limited resources. It can be a place where they work together to create abundance." The final validation came when other alien species began requesting assistance from the Human-Villani Alliance. Peoples who had been hiding from the Kethavar for decades emerged to ask for help, implementing cooperative defense strategies. Each new species brought different advantages. The silicon-based rock tar provided incredible engineering skills. The SAR, energy form lumine, contributed advanced communication technologies. The plant-like Velandra offered biological solutions to resource problems. What started as a simple survival training contract had grown into the foundation for the galaxy's first true multi-species alliance, based on mutual aid rather than dominance. Tai-Ho often stood on the same hill where he had first seen the cooperative settlement, now watching ships from dozens of worlds arriving to trade knowledge and resources. The Kethavar still existed, but they had learned to avoid systems protected by cooperative alliances. Their strategy of consuming isolated civilizations failed when those civilizations were no longer isolated. "Do you ever regret staying?" Rilvan asked one evening as they watched the busy spaceport below. "Never," Tejo answered honestly. "I thought my job was to teach you how to survive. Instead, you taught me how to live." The stars above them were no longer cold and distant. They were destinations where humans, Villani, and their allies were building communities based on cooperation, adaptation, and mutual respect. Tejo's role had evolved from reluctant survival instructor to permanent bridge between civilizations. But more than that, he had helped prove that the universe's greatest challenges could be met not with superior weapons or advanced technology alone, but with the simple decision to work together instead of apart. The survival skills he had taught. The Villani were still important, but they were no longer about making fire or finding water. They were about building communities that could adapt to any challenge, resist any threat, and create hope in the darkest circumstances. It was the most important lesson either species had ever learned, and it was one they would carry to the stars.